Hey, what's up, y'all? It's poppin'. It's D. Watch react to this Jubilee video. This one is called "Should White Parents Adopt Children of Color?" Damn, this is a deep topic. And it's funny because I know one of the girls who are in this video. When this came out a month ago, she posted it on Instagram. And I was like, oh, okay, she was in this Jubilee video. That's cool. But yeah, this is a pretty deep topic. I personally think that it's okay for white people to adopt children of color, but I think they should educate themselves on that child's culture first. Don't just blend them into your white family and, not let them know anything about their heritage or their background or anything like that. Like, I don't think that's cool. I think that is when it becomes a problem, because then they're gonna end up feeling lost and not knowing who they are. If you do that, you can't just be like, all right, you white now, come into this white family, we're gonna, act like you ain't black, we're gonna act like you not Mexican or whatever. Like, no, like, educate them. Like, learn how to do their hair properly. You can't just adopt no child of color and pretend that they ain't of color, because they got different struggles. I think it's important to have certain conversations with them about race. I don't think you should act like it doesn't exist and that it's not going to affect their lives, because it very much so will affect their lives. If they're of color, they're going to be affected very, very differently than you're affected. So I don't agree with them adopting, kids of color and just being like, all right, come on to this white family, you're white now. Like, nah, that's not how it works. But, let's see what these people got to say, though. Let's watch.
I grew up in a very rural town in Illinois. From a young age, I was just very opposed to being Asian. I'd lie. I'd say, oh yeah, my parents got divorced. One of them's half. I'm half. I don't really look half, but whatever.
Damn. See, that's why you got to educate yourself and educate your kids. Well, if you're of color, you should automatically know, like, why I look different than you? Oh, damn. They didn't tell you?
I was in the foster system, so I kind of knew I was going to be adopted, and I wasn't adopted till I was 17, so it's a little older than younger.
I mean, I was adopted when I was like 7 months, so my parents told me before I even could understand, and I feel that's what all parents should do, because if you get older and you don't know and then you figure out, that can really take a mental toll on you.
I found out when I was adopted at an early age because my parents are white. How could I not know? How could I not know I was adopted? And growing up on Long Island, I dealt with a lot of racism, like even in like first grade, like people calling me like chink and gook. So I realized that obviously I was different. I would go home and I would ask my parents, like, what does this mean? Like, what is a chink? And they would have to talk to me about it.
I'm also a transracial adoptee, so it was very obvious. On top of that, I also grew up in Olympia, Washington, which is very white. It wasn't strange to talk about adoption. They were always very open about that, and I'm very grateful for that, because, again, I do know people who were not told they were adopted, and, it just tears the world apart.
I hope all y'all do.
3, 2, 1.
Ooh.
It's just more personal issues, like family dynamics, that we haven't really gotten along. It's never been like, I don't like you because you're adopted. None of that has ever been brought up. It's just side issues, and as I get older, I really distance myself from them, because as I'm becoming my own person, my views of the world and what I believe in are drastically different than theirs. So I think that's where our relationship has kind of proven to be a lot more distant.
My adoptive dad passed away about 7 years ago. I had a really great relationship. He was the person who raised me, taught me, how to be a good person. Me and my older brother, I think we kind of bounce around it, but I think the reason why we're not as close as brothers should be is because we're two adopted people.
I mean, every family's gonna have problems, but for them literally taking me in when I'm not theirs and they really have no responsibility to me, and they've given me a life, they've helped me go through college. I've always felt kind of bad to either speak my mind compared to my sister, who's like their biological kid. And even though I know if I spoke my mind, they wouldn't say anything about me being adopted, but because they've like done so much for me, I subconsciously just felt bad bringing stuff up and talking about it because I was just so grateful.
Yeah, I agree. I have a very good relationship with my parents. Could it be better? Absolutely. Despite our differences and despite some things that happened, they would die for me, and that they've sacrificed so much for me. That phrase, blood is thicker than water, I'm like, what? No. Like, just look at people who are adopted. Like, they're my family. I don't even use the word adopted parents. Like, that's insulting to me. Like, they're just my parents.
Ooh.
I guess for like a long time, I had no idea who they were. And, the only thing I really got was like papers and like stuff my mom said. And so what I found out was my mother developed a opioid addiction. Even when I was in the womb, she was drinking Hennessy. The reason why I'd somewhat disagree and not strongly disagree is because there's still a sense of wanting, because I have no reference to say, you're my mother.
Yeah, I
don't
feel
feel
like
like
it's natural.
I'm missing anything. Like, I feel like if you share DNA, that doesn't mean that they love you. I'm not like mad at my birth parents for like giving me up, because I feel like they did it for like giving me a better life, and for that like I'm grateful. And my adoption was closed, so I've never like seen or like been able to meet or talk, and like I feel like that's fine.
I just want to emphasize, for my adoption, I was actually taken away by the government.
Yeah.
So she
It's
didn't
just
voluntarily
different.
put me in the foster unit. Just wanted to emphasize that.
I was in the foster system too, and my situation is a little different and not like a lot of foster kids, because I was put in the system when I was 13, and I grew up with my mom my whole life, and at that point I knew she was not fit to be a mother. She was abusive, she was toxic. Would I go back and see my mom? No, I'm not ready, at least right now, because I've had to deal with a lot of therapy dealing with PTSD from her. My bio dad also had a drug addiction. He got deported, and he didn't reach out to me till I was 13 years old and said, sorry, I forgot about you. So I kind of just gave up on that, especially when I had this
No, the fuck he did. I
family
forgot
adopt
about
me
you.
and showed me that they didn't care that I was the only Mexican in a big family full of Jews. They didn't care that I looked different, that I had to go to therapy, and that I had to deal with all these things, because no matter what, I still contributed to the family, and they still treated me the exact same way that they treated their daughter. So, yeah.
It really wasn't until actually just a few years ago that I decided I'm actually ready to reach out to my birth family, and I had a closed adoption. So it was very, very hard to track down all this information, and agencies are closed after 27 years and all this stuff. But I did eventually find her on Facebook, and we have reached out. We talk on the phone now, so we have like kind of a basic communication. I kind of realized that I kind of felt fulfilled. I didn't really feel like I needed to do a whole lot more. I think eventually down the line, once I get the rest of my life together, I will like to go down there, meet them and meet all my siblings and all that stuff. But right now, I kind of feel okay.
This is a really unusual case. My birth father actually reached out to me through the agency. Maybe if he didn't, maybe I wouldn't be on this line. But once he reached out to me, it did make me curious about Korea. And then once I learned the Korean language, I was like, all right, like I really want to get to know these people.
Yes. Oh, Rebecca gonna say strongly disagree. I already know. Oh, she just said disagree. Oh no, she went to strongly disagree.
Growing
I
up,
know it.
I would have been strongly agree. I was literally the only black person in my town, so
She's very
I had
pro-black.
no reference of what black people were doing or what black culture was. And I did go through a lot of the, oh, you talk like a white girl, you're an Oreo, or you don't know every Tupac song, so you're not black enough. Like all those kind of stereotypes of what black people are supposed to be. But for me, that just kind of pushed me to learn more about black culture and read up on our history and all that.
Because I'm white, I didn't face what you guys face, but I was also adopted from Russia. Because I was told from a young age that I was adopted, I got to celebrate my Russian culture and heritage.
I started at strongly agree, and then you mentioned struggle is in the present, and that's what's happening now. I grew up in a very rural town in Illinois. From a young age, I was just very opposed to being Asian. I was opposed to being Chinese. I didn't really suffer from racism, really, which I feel very blessed and lucky for. But I still struggled with myself. I was like, I don't like being Chinese. I'd lie. I'd say, oh yeah, my parents got divorced. One of them's half. I'm half. I don't really look half, but whatever. And then it wasn't until high school, like my sophomore year, I was like, I need to get really connected with my culture because it feels like there's a part of me still missing. And there will always be a part of me missing until I actually discover that.
Oh, they probably all would say agree. Because they were adopted. Oh. I'm surprised that they said
It's just personal issues with me not having that blood connection to anyone. But if the adoption scenario ever came up, I would definitely not be opposed to it. It's just right now, I would want my own kids if I had them.
A part of me wants to do that as well. I want to have my own child. But another part of me, I want to be able to get kids that are grown and that they're 10 years old and their whole life has been horrible, and I'm the one that's going to give them a second chance. But that's only because of what I went through.
You can do both, absolutely. But also for me, I don't want to adopt out of obligation of feeling like I need to adopt because I'm an adoptee. That doesn't create a healthy environment either, where I feel like I had to adopt. I've always kind of teetered on this line, and until I personally figure out what works best for me, I'm just nothing's coming over here for a while.
Strongly agree. Y'all better all say strongly agree. I know Rebecca gonna say strongly agree.
3, 2, 1.
Look, she running over there. That's hilarious. Y'all all should say agree. What you mean?
Mindful is a good word to use. Just because your parents are different race doesn't mean that they love you any less or anything like that.
It's not about
they
that,
should be mindful and take into consideration that you will have a more difficult time trying to navigate and stuff like that, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't adopt in different races.
When you're adopting a child and you're taking them into your home, no matter what race they are, you still, I feel as an adoptive parent, have a responsibility to kind of connect them to their culture. Just acknowledge it, I don't think that you'd be like, you need to go to Dia de los Muertos because you're Mexican. No, if you want, you can. Just know it's something that your culture does.
I feel that I've kind of went through an identity crisis, especially over the last few years as I'm trying to connect with my culture. I was completely unaware. I was very ignorant to it. And I regret that because I could feel a lot more confident in myself. But because I kind of had to do it on my own because my parents didn't do that, it's been a lot harder to identify with white, Asian? Where am I in the spectrum of this? I wish they would have just helped me embrace the culture a little more rather than look at me as a little child going, I hate being Asian, and they just laugh and go, ha ha ha, because again, they've never experienced that in their life, so they don't understand.
What the fuck? No, laughing is fucked
mindful
up.
is a very kind of coddly term for it.
You need to educate yourself.
I was told the N-word when I was literally a child. I had people come up to me and pet me like I was in a petting zoo. I've gotten spit on. I've gotten all kinds of things, and I couldn't go to my family because they don't know anything. They're white. They were privileged enough to never, ever have to think about these things. But there's a whole nother set of things that come along with raising children of color. You have to be willing to put your life on the line for your child of color. It's just not, oh, they didn't mean it like that. Oh, they're just from the older generation. They don't understand. No. Those are the kind of the responses I still get to this day, and it has literally ruined relationships in my family because they're so uncomfortable just talking about racism. You're no longer a white family. You're a family of multiple races. Embrace all of it, and it's time to just put the color blind bullshit aside and really get down to these issues because it is literally killing people, and to me it's just not tolerant at all.
That was
You better preach.
That was great. I'm gonna move on to this line over here.
You better preach, Rebecca. Oh, this is a cool video. This is cool. I agree with a lot of things that they were saying. It was just interesting hearing, some of their perspectives, like the Asian girl, her saying, I hate being Asian. It's crazy that her family was like, ha ha ha. The fuck is so funny? What? That's not. That's not okay. So yeah, it does make sense for, you know, you to educate yourself before you bring, you know, these people of color into your family. Like, why you can't just pretend that they not of color, you know, just because you're like, I don't see color. That's not realistic. Everybody sees color. Fuck what you talking about. But yeah, this is a really interesting video. I enjoyed it a lot. Let me know what y'all think. Let me know what other videos you want me to react to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.